the Bengaluru Adinam, home of the Avatar, His Holiness Bhagwan Paramahamsa Nithyananda. And those of you who join us on two-way from around the world, on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and on Nithyananda TV Live. Myself, Nithya Mahayogananda, and Nithya Swarupa Priyananda, we welcome you to the Nithya Satsang with the Avatar with our deepest love and respects.
Nithyanandam.
Ma Swarupa Priya.
Yes, Ma Mahayoga.
It's been a long while since we shared a stage.
It has been. That's true.
So I remember once people were telling that whenever these two come on stage, there's bound to be something cool, something extraordinary that we offer people.
Yes.
And just yesterday we were talking about how can we add to your life. Powers, yes. These days Swamiji's name is synonymous with powers, just the way people's name are synonymous with problems.
Yes.
But today, with all our elaborate hairdos, I dare say, I think people are already about to guess what we're going to do. Today, we think it is time we teach people a new symbol of determination. Just before I came to the Bangalore Adinam, I was in Dubai, and I happened to sit with someone related to me for business. And this guy was telling, are you always going to have your hair like this? I'm like, yeah. He's like, it makes you look really spiritual. I'm like, that's the whole point. And then he tells, more than anything, it looks like nothing can change your mind. I mean, he was a regular person outside. They're not going to talk to you in the language of consciousness. He said, it looks like nothing can change your mind. That point, it didn't strike a chord with me. But today, when we're seated here, and we're going to talk to the entire world about the history of dreadlocks, Jatas, the very symbol of determination, chastity, that Sadashiva bears on his crown. I think this is the first time I was able to relate the two stories. And I suddenly remembered why a lay person, someone outside, would tell me that it just makes you look really determined.
That's amazing, Ma. That's wonderful also.
Yeah. And because of this, I wanted to tell people about a topic I know is very dear to you, especially. So as a person who came from outside, you know, you traveled all the way from Canada, you chose to accept a monastic life, you chose to live in a very traditional monastery. And we're probably the only place that is told the reasons behind why we follow certain rituals and the reasons behind why we follow certain traditions. I mean, why on earth would you be sporting dreadlocks on your head? Just tell me why.
Well, it's funny you should ask, because actually when I was in high school, I had this unimaginable desire to get my nose pierced, to wear dreadlocks, to put a red dot between my eyebrows. I had no idea where that desire was coming from. And there were days I would even dress up for high school with fake dreadlocks. I would cover my head with hair gel.
I used to do that with those pirate hat dreadlocks.
Yes. I remember seeing pirate hat dreadlocks or Rastafarian hat dreadlocks, but I never really felt connected to pirates or the Rasta movement.
And worse, I was told that is not the way you should be. Like only street urchins, gangsters, and basically people you don't want to associate with will get tattoos, will have dreadlocks. It's exact, and have piercings.
Counterculture instead of superculture.
Exactly. Counterculture instead of superculture. Good one.
So for me personally, what drew me to the monastic lifestyle, basically from the time I was 17, I've seen Swamiji in visions and in dreams. His Holiness, our Bhagwan Paramahamsa Nithyananda. And I would always see him in this bright saffron robe, wandering, walking up mountainous terrain, sitting on rocks, just giving the most powerful, profound guidance. And I knew that that's what I aspired to, without knowing who he is, what he's about, what he represents. And throughout my life, whenever I saw pictures of a saffron-clad sadhu with the matted locks, with the piercings, with the rudrakshas, I always felt that regardless of where I come from, despite being a Western-born female raised in a Catholic family, that's the lifestyle that I was yearning for. And it's amazing how intrinsic fashion is to our identity. You know, before coming to the stage today, Ma Mahayoga and I were having a discussion about beauty trends in the West and how nefariously this kind of idea to fit a certain stereotypical mold of attractive works its way into the minds of women especially, forcing them to spend outrageous sums of money just to keep their roots dyed or to keep their ends trimmed, to prevent split ends, to prevent their flyaways, how much money they spend on product. And I came across a statistic. The average American woman, after the age of 18, between the ages of 18 and 70, will spend $55,000 on her hair.
In a year? Please tell
Oh,
me.
not in a year. In a year, it was more like around 5 to 10,000.
Ah, that really freaked
But
me out.
$55,000 in a year, that's the average that most would earn.
Oh, but I actually can tell you, when I was living in Singapore, I met people who were models and or socialites. They would easily spend $10,000 on
Yes.
their hair in a week.
Wow.
Because you can ask how. They would have permanent extensions.
Right.
They would replace them every week to have a completely different hairdo.
Huh.
Permanent extensions made of human hair.
Wow.
So this would mean that in a year, they're spending more than $120,000.
Wow.
Much more. At least four times more than that. And the whole point over there was, even in the Far East Asia and even in India today, I watch these shows like India's Next Top Model or
Ah, yes.
America's Next Top Model. And there they tell you, if you want to be a model, this is the look you need to have. And the girls will be screaming in pain, you know, pining in pain.
Yes.
And they'd be like, oh my God, these extensions, how am I even going to maintain them?
Yes.
And at the end of it, they show that when they go back home to their hometowns, they'd be like, how on earth are we even going to maintain these dues? Because they cost even more amount of money.
Right.
So which means you need to continue being a model, continue being part of that whole trend. I'm not saying any of this is wrong,
No.
but you know, at the end of the day, people have no idea what they're doing. Do you know something? Many people do not understand that the hair that they're using for extensions comes from places like Tirupati, okay, where people go and shave off their hair to get rid of karma. So now guess what, Swarupa Priya? People take that same hair, which is discarded karma for someone, they have that cleaned up, sterilized, and then they put it on your head. So that is like somebody wanted to get rid of cancer, offered hair as a sacred sentiment to Mahavishnu at Tirupati. Then I take that and very happily put that on me and wear it as extensions.
Wow.
Now that is one of the major reasons why DNA, when you put on you from any source, whether that's hair or saliva or blood, it has a way of mixing with you.
Right.
And at the end of the day, people wonder where they got cancer from.
Right. Well, I mean, we've heard so many stories, especially in the mainstream media. It was a huge trend about 5 years ago when people have a transplant surgery performed, a heart transplant or a liver transplant or a kidney transplant. Suddenly, they take on the personality traits of the organ donor.
I watched movies about that stuff.
Yes. So it's no wonder if somebody is going to take on somebody's personality traits, their likes and dislikes relating to food, music. I saw one documentary, a lady picked up a British accent after having an organ transplant.
Oh my
and
God.
the organ donor was British.
Oh my God.
So it's no wonder that if you have a hair transplant, somebody else's biological hair woven into yours, naturally you're going to start to assume that individual's personality traits.
Swarupa Priya, I want to give some spiritual context.
Please do.
Before we bring out a very special guest today, who is I should call him a top favorite or a hot favorite amongst all of us Jata lovers or dreadlock lovers. We should tell you this. In the beginning, when we opened the show, we spoke to you about determination. Swamiji says determination is nothing but chastity towards your consciousness. Chastity towards consciousness is you being able to choose good over pleasure.
Right.
The right over pleasure. And I know for a long while Swamiji has been talking about this. He always says you will always have two choices, either the good or the pleasure. He says when you're at that fork bend, always choose the good. Chastity is determination. And determination is chastity towards consciousness and anything that helps your consciousness grow. I tell you, the first time I got Jatas, Swamiji had told me, that time the whole Adinam was not behind the Jata culture yet. We were just beginning. And it was one fine day in Varanasi, Swamiji told me, hey, you and Jnanatma, why don't you guys go and get Jatas? I had no idea about it at that time, but when I started Googling it, I was like, oh my God, it looks really, really, and then the words did not come out. At the end of it, I just felt, Swamiji is asking you to get it, so might as well choose it. It's got to be out of his intelligence.
So you weren't somebody like me who grew up wanting them?
No. I certainly did not want them because I did not even know them. I did not even know them. I grew up in a very sheltered environment where it was taught to you that you should nicely comb your hair and plait it and do all that. See, before we bring out today's special guest, I really wanted to give this up as a spiritual context for why we are one of the world's largest dreadlock-bearing community that currently exists on planet Earth. If anybody walks into the Adi Kailash, home of the Avatar, you will see a whole bunch of people living here who are extraordinary power manifestors. We manifest the extraordinary powers of the source from the space of oneness with that source. And our entire lifestyle, the way we dress, the kind of jewelry we wear, the kind of hairdos we have, the kind of markings we put on our faces, the kind of piercings we have, anything and everything is only to support our consciousness. Yes. And why? People can ask us now, oh, what do you mean? Others are not determined. People living outside, they're not determined. Actually, this determination is of a different quality. Swamiji says, when your hair is completely left open, you are, please listen to this very carefully. I don't think many people have even heard of this before. When your hair is just completely left loose, open, you are leaving yourself susceptible to the unconscious influences society is always throwing on you.
Wow.
Society is always going to throw its unconscious influence on you till you start throwing back your conscious determination on it.
Now, you know, Ma, there's a beautiful story from the Native American tradition that completely supports this. There was a band of Aboriginal people, First Nations people in the United States, who were almost mythological in that they could track anybody in any forest. The moment they thought of a person, they would know exactly where to find that person. Wow. And when the United States went to civil war, the army went seeking for that band of Native Americans. And when they found them, they took all the males, conscripted them into their army after first giving them a test. So they hid certain people in the woods, and sure enough, these young men were able to track and find exactly who they were looking for. Wow. However, the moment the war began, they were proven to be useless on the battlefield. They had completely lost their power. They couldn't find anybody. In fact, they were worse than the trained soldiers. When somebody went to one of the elders of that tribe and asked, why were these men so good when we tested them, but now they're useless? The tribal leader said, before they had been enlisted into the army, their hair had never been cut. They always wore it loose. Once they were enlisted, they were given military buzz cuts. Wow. And he said that when the hair is left open and loose, all the information that's circulating in the atmosphere around the individual is grabbed almost as if by antennas. And so exactly what Swamiji had described, that when we wear our hair loose, we're susceptible to society's whims, fancies, opinions.
Unconscious
it's literally
conclusions.
true. They're unconscious conclusions.
So true. That means when people started to cut our hair, it so you really have to wear it loose at that time. It really keeps you more susceptible.
Yes.
That is why in Vedic tradition, we actually don't cut hair. We actually don't cut hair. We shave it off to get rid of some karmas and some unconscious conditionings that the previous society dumped on us, that we have unwittingly taken. Right. But later, when gurus, when you live in a spiritual ambience amidst great masters, at that point, the hair, it really becomes like an antenna that stores intelligentsia inside. And at that point, this hair needs to be contained in the form of dreadlocks.
Yes.
That is why, as dreadlocks, we're even able to wear them completely loose, or like half on our heads and half down, the way both of us are currently sporting. But the whole point is, Swamiji says, even as human beings, if you are not going to put your conscious determination, your tyaga on society, they are going to continuously harass you with their ideas, their half-baked conclusions on you. So the hair, if you want to be a power manifester who's living very consciously with super conscious powers, the way we express over here, then the only way out is to even start dressing the way Sadashiva prescribed. And Sadashiva very beautifully has got multiple hairstyles when it comes to how the jatas or the dreadlocks should be created, should be groomed, should be contained. And this is also why Swarupa Priya, I remember showing you a book a long time back when we were in Nasik Kumbh Mela. And it was about, you were doing a documentary then, and I was showing you the sadhus of India. And in that book we saw that these great sadhus, who were the heads of big spiritual organizations, before they passed away, they would all know, this is the day when I'm going to pass away. They would cut their dreadlocks and they will pass it on to their inheritors. Those guys used to attach them and then create it like a big turban on their head. I used to think, why? Until Swamiji once told that this is a tradition where they pass on their existing intelligence and all the mantras and all the knowledge, all the spiritual knowledge and all the conscious conclusions and all the conscious determination they had to their disciples. This is the reason why people like us, or the people who are living in Adi Kailash, and literally about, I should say, 70% of the global disciples of Paramahamsa Nithyananda now sport jatas.
Absolutely.
And maybe after this one particular show, we have no idea how many more are going to take it up. But it's actually a very strong way that if your conscious determination has to be put back, one way to not be susceptible to society's half-baked conclusions and what seems to affect us is to have dreadlocks, where your hair is not allowed to escape you at all. It's completely contained. So the energy, you are nothing but energy at the end of the day. You are not matter at the end of the day. So as energy, this becomes a symbol of tyaga, which is nothing but chastity towards
your goals, your determination in life,
and to your superconsciousness. Now, do you think it's time to bring him out now?
I think so, yes.
Swarupa Priya has got a very special guest who she would like to introduce and bring about on stage. He's a big favorite amongst all of us who love dreadlocks, and his fingers have got magic, and they literally have the power to never say die. You know, it takes a lot of effort for people to get dreadlocks done.
Absolutely.
But he's one person who can just continue on and on and on. Also, I think what you will mention is he is one of those people who has had the rare fortune of touching Swamiji's jatas and maintaining it for our beloved as well.
Yes.
So without further ado.
Yes. It's my great honor to introduce Shri Nithya Brahmagharbananda.
Can you hear that?
I think everyone, even without the microphones, can hear that.
Yes.
Nithyanandam. So the first thing I'd like to mention is that the world is fascinated by what it considers to be unknown. And so many aspects of our lives seem to mystify people outside the gates of this campus. You know, why do we chant in Sanskrit? Why do we wear clothes that look like ancient robes? Why do we apply kumkum and vibhuti? Maybe one day we'll make an episode introducing satsang based on those themes. But one of the most obvious physical differences between Adi Kailasha Vasis, those of us living with Mahasadashiva, and people out there, is that all of us have jatas, have these sacred matted locks. Now, this wasn't the culture in Adi Kailash a couple of years ago. This all started when Swamiji himself got jatas. Actually, Ma Mahayoga was the first trendsetter.
No, I was the one, I should say Swamiji experimented on my head.
Yes.
Swarupa Priya, when you were talking, I could literally actually not focus on what you were saying, even though I heard everything, because I'm completely intrigued by his hairdo today. Can we actually get a complete close-up on him? Maybe our international audience should really see his tattoos of Kala Bhairava, the sacred chakra, geometry, and the hairdo, which he actually looks like the banyan tree today.
That is true.
Really, and then it looks like he's got that cobra on his neck.
Yes.
And
the banyan tree with the hanging roots.
Brahmagarba, how old are you?
I'm 24 now.
You are 24.
Yes.
24.
Wow.
A complete icon in the spiritual world.
Yes.
I mean, they should just showcase all of your tattoos, I know, which are made by really, really privileged tattoo artists, and this extraordinarily long Shivajatas that you maintain.
Yes.
Sorry, I just got sidetracked, and I really felt that all of you should take a closer look at him.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Now, if it even mystifies Ma Mahayoga herself, who herself is a Jatadari, who's a power manifester, who lives with Mahasadashiva, I'm just curious to know, when you go outside this campus, you're from Slovakia, and that's a fairly traditional European country. I've visited Slovakia myself, and I haven't seen anyone there who looks like you, with these kinds of tattoos, with these Shivajatas. In a country as European as Slovakia, how did you learn about Shivajatas in the first place? How did you pursue this as your line of work?
Yes, so definitely in Slovakia, there are a lot of people with jatas. In Slovakia, many of my friends or a lot of people there are interested in spirituality. They are not directly connected with Hinduism, but like jatas, they wear jatas, and it is like the way how they express their spiritual way. Also, Mama Hayoga, when we have a world tour in Slovakia, you can see that that time it was a lot of people with jatas attending.
It was the only place. I actually want to make a point on this. We were on world tour showcasing the extraordinary powers. We went to Paris, we went to New York, we went everywhere. And when we went to Slovakia, I made this comment to the Mahant over there. I said, am I dreaming, or all these people really have jatas on their heads? And I thought it's only because of him.
Wow.
But then I realized that they have this natural frequency where they're connecting with this idea that their hair should be in matted locks. And I was telling that to Brahmagarba before, and that time his name was Robert, before he recently received a spiritual name. And I said, Robert, is this actually true that all of them have got jatas? He's like, yeah, that's naturally how they want to do their hair. I never knew that it's from some spiritual context or anything. No wonder Swamiji called Slovakia Shivaloka.
Shivaloka. I was just thinking Shivaloka. And the mountain range there, the high
it's
Tatras.
the frequency.
Swamiji has described that Shiva himself resides in the Tatras.
So this energy is in Slovakia, and a lot of people are interested in it and express them like this. Also, when you ask how I came to Jatas, it's first time I was interested in spirituality from my young age, and I always read about sadhus and masters, spiritual masters, and I always find that these masters, these beings, they wear jatas as some significance of their knowledge. So it always attracts me, and I always think that I want to do, because I feel that it will raise my frequency, or it will help me with my spiritual journey. So I find somebody in Slovakia who did for me, and already this person learned me a little bit. So then I practice, and and I do, and finally I came here to do for
Wow.
everybody.
When you would see those masters in those books and read about these great divine spiritual beings who have these matted locks, did you ever imagine that you yourself would one day not only sport Shivajatas, but also be the personal stylist to the incarnation of the one who first brought this divine trend to planet Earth?
This I never imagined. Like it was somewhere inside me as something, as my wish that I want to meet some enlightened master, but I never think that I meet him and that I will have opportunity to make his jatas or be in touch with him. So I can say this is like my wish is fulfilled.
Absolutely. And before we move on to show maybe a demonstration of a jata style, you shared with me once a very powerful experience that happened the first time you laid physical eyes on Mahasadashiva himself in form, on our Paramahamsa Nithyananda. Can you share with all of our viewers what exactly you experienced that sacred moment when you first saw him?
Yes, so first when I physically saw Swamiji, it happens like when actually in Slovakia, when our Mahant, Nithya Brahmagharbananda, she called me to do her jatas, and when I did it, next day she came here to India, and people here like it, so she called me, like they call me here to come and do jatas. And I never think that I will do jatas for Swamiji. I think, okay, I'll be here, I will do jatas for people. And it was a big surprise that second day when I was here, Swamiji called me to do his jatas. So when it happens, like I was called to courtyard, and when I enter a gate, I saw Swamiji sitting on his swing. And when I saw him, I have experienced that I am too big, like too tall, and I am able to see everything around me in very big details.
Wow.
And that moment, I was like scared what is happening. And when it happens, this pulled me back to body that I am here. And I was like, I feel little fear, so I look at the Swamiji. And he was laughing at me, and in this moment I feel that he knows what I experience, and this give me the feeling that okay, everything is okay. So this was like my first physical experience with him.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes. Incredible. It's really one of my favorite stories of someone's first meeting with Swamiji, because he himself describes that 360-degree vision, seen every direction, up, down, sideways, in great detail, as his first enlightenment experience. And I think this beautifully illustrates for people the physics of the guru-disciple relationship. When you live with the master, when you're in his physical proximity, his experiences become your experiences that just gets transferred through the very air that he breathes. So thank you so much for sharing that, Brahmagarba. And
thank you too.
now we have a very special treat for everyone watching. And Brahmagarba is going to demonstrate for us one of the hairstyles, one of the jata styles described in Sadashiva's Agama.
And to be our stylish specimen in today's beautiful demonstration, we have Shri Nithya Brahmagharbananda Maharaj. Please come up on stage. Prem Swarupa Maharaj is actually known for having some very well-maintained jatas, and he's quite a pro at making the dreadlocks himself these days, and is quite sought after for it. So Brahmagarba, why don't you get started? While Ma Swarupa Priya and I would actually like to address some common myths around dreadlocks.
Yes. So we can share these myths as the style is happening itself. Actually, the first common myth that I've heard about jatas is that they must be dirty. And this is such a silly assumption that people make. But actually, jatas can be washed, they get to be maintained just as anybody would maintain their own hair. And what you notice is a lot less hair fall. Ma Mahayoga had mentioned such a cool fact that energy is held within the hair, and that when your hair is left loose, you're susceptible. When the hair is kept tied, when it's not falling all over the place, you really have much more control over your own energy.
Shall
it
I
helps
tell you
with the
something
power
in this?
manifesting. Yes, please do.
Very recently, I was trying to download a lot about what makes hair grow really thick, because some of the new powers that we are manifesting over here is we can grow hair on a completely bald person.
Yes.
We can make the follicles come alive again.
Yes.
And it's like, I think people spend about $400, $500 per treatment outside,
Yes.
and they have to go for multiple sessions.
More than that if it's
Much
a hair
more
graft.
than that,
yes.
is it? Wow. And yeah, of course, if it's hair grafting. But over here, just by using the power to the one of the extraordinary Shaktis of the third eye, we're able to start growing hair on people, increase the length of existing hair.
Yes.
I saw one thing out here. Hair falls out when you leave yourself highly susceptible to society's influences.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's why when once there was a person in our Sangha, she told Swamiji, I'm losing hair, Swamiji. He only gave one solution. He said, you're losing hair? Fine. Get dreadlocks. You'll stop losing hair. And she was like, that does not look like a proper solution at all. How can you, because the weight of your dreadlocks is going to weigh you down, right? That's what everyone's going to think.
Yes.
But her hair actually stopped falling after that.
That's amazing, and it's against the myth that people would assume would be true, that if your hair is heavier, it's going to fall out more quickly.
Absolutely.
And it's because the energy gets so beautifully locked. Now we can see the jatas being piled on top of the head, either all the way on top or half up, just as Brahmagarba has now done here on Prema Surupa Maharaj. That's a specific style to keep the energy on the Sahasrara, on the crown center, so our consciousness is constantly elevated. Not only does it look cool, this is actually a hairstyle of super consciousness. Now, I want to share with all of you, we're offering a free consultation service that will include the expertise of Brahmagarba himself and the recommendations for styles out of the ancient agamas of Mahasadashiva. Your own personal jata consultation. So whether you're looking to get jatas yourself, or if you already have them and you want some style tips, some hairdressing ideas, please go to tiny.cc/jatas. You can find a link to the form here in the hashtag Nithyananda Satsang Facebook group. So if you go to the Facebook group, hashtag Nithyananda Satsang, the top post you'll see on that page is a post to get your own jata consultation. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Brahmagarba, for joining us. And now we'll share what Ma Mahayoga is so excited to present to everyone. The Shastra Pramana, the exact verse out of the Agamas, in which Mahasadashiva recommends this unique and beautiful style.
So thousands and thousands of years ago, when Sadashiva himself gives a beautiful scriptural reference as to why we should be sporting dreadlocks on our hair, especially when we are in this journey of superconscious breakthrough. Let's take a look.
लोके जटाधारिण एव ये रुद्राक्षधरास्ते वै यमलोकं प्रयान्ति न एवमाज्ञापयामास कालोऽपि निजकिङ्करान् तथेति मत्वा सर्वे तूष्णीमासन् सुविस्मिताः.
So this beautiful verse, it says, those who wear rudraksha, those who are jatadhari, who adorn the jata, Shiva's locks on their head, are as Tripundra, the three-lined sacred ashes on their forehead. They never have to visit the abode of death, Yama. Yama will literally avoid visiting those who adorn themselves in the sacred style of Mahasadashiva himself. That means when you adorn yourself in these sacred styles, by wearing the 3 stripes of bhasma on the forehead, by putting on the sacred rudraksh seeds, and by wearing your hair in the matted locks, the Shivajatas. Even Lord Yama himself, the Lord of Death, has no right to touch you.
That's wonderful. I hope you enjoyed our little segment today.